I was debating about whether I should do the full moon in Virgo video today or whether I should do the Venus in Taurus video. And yesterday in the video I put out there, I'd mentioned that I would be doing after yesterday's video 2 more videos, one about the full moon in Virgo, which occurs on Monday, February the 9th, and one on the Venus transit in Taurus. And I was going to do the full moon video today to just kind of get that done and behind us because it's building and we should be in some ways starting to feel it. But I realized that when I looked at the full moon in Virgo and I looked at the fact that it's happening in Virgo, and so Mercury rules it, and Mercury's in Aquarius, and Aquarius is ruled by both Uranus and Saturn, and Uranus is in Taurus, and therefore it is ruled by Venus right now, or governed by Venus, and Venus is in its own sign of Taurus. So Venus does play an important role with this full moon insofar as it's going to be Venus and Saturn that are going to be ruling this full moon ultimately. I know that if you're looking online, everyone's like Mercury rules this full moon, and it does, but let me use the right word. But the Virgo full moon is disposited by Venus and Saturn. So we can't. When I do the full moon video, I'll go from the macro and the micro, but on a macro level, the Venus transit in Taurus is both important, necessary, and welcome. I think that's the most important thing about the Venus and Taurus transit that we should talk about. Right now, if we look at charts, there are 3 planets that are in their own home. Venus is in Taurus, Neptune is in Pisces. You can look at my video yesterday regarding Pisces and Neptune on a certain level, and Mercury going stationary. And Saturn is in Capricorn. Another planet that is happy or well placed is Mars in Capricorn. But so we have a few planets that are well placed. We do have Mercury retrograde right now, and we do have Mercury retrograde but going stationary on the same day as the full moon on the 9th. And yesterday's video covered some of what that means and implies, and tomorrow's full moon video will cover what that means and implies, because Mercury does rule over this full moon in Virgo. And with this full moon in Virgo, the sun is still in Pisces, and Mercury, when it goes direct, so much of the retrograde cycle played out in Pisces. Okay, enough already about all this. Let's get to the Venus and Taurus part. In the middle of everything that has been going on, let me start here. I've mentioned to you that January and part of February, maybe the first 10 of days of February, had a forward momentum to them. And then after about February the 10th, as we headed towards Mercury going retrograde on February the 17th, the focus shifted somehow on making sure that we, in terms of our lives, can catch up and prepare for some of the forward movement and progress that occurred in January and the first 10 days of February. It's windy here, so just know that. And that certainly is underway. And with Mercury's retrograde cycle occurring in Pisces, certainly we're going to be taking a certain set of actions to put certain past things that have been bothering and disturbing us, or that have been an issue, to bed as we head towards May the 4th and even into the summer. But Mercury retrograde cycles and direct cycles are always occurring that allow our minds, I'm going to use that word for the purpose of this video, to catch up with everything that is going on psychically and spiritually in terms of pushing our lives forward. Once the Mercury goes direct on the 9th or the 10th, depending on where you are in the world, of March, and if we give it a few days, 4 or 5 days, even a week, when it enters Pisces, say on March the 16th, from the middle of March till the beginning of May, we have an utter boost of forward momentum. And in some ways, the Venus transit in Taurus sets us up for this. While Mercury has been retrograde, and while we've been dealing with the 2-month eclipse anniversary that occurred on February the 25th. We had a solar eclipse on December the 25th, and if you've been following my videos, the week before February 25th and after February 25th were important in that regard, and certainly for people where significant developments related to the eclipse were concerned, kind of hellish as eclipses can be. Kind of groundbreaking, ground shaking. I'm not saying that eclipses always bring negative, sudden chapter turns and twists and turns and bends in our lives, but For those of whom this was positive, wonderful. For those of whom it was minor, even better. We don't have to go looking for hell. But for those of whom were affected by it, I think at this point in time, we can probably feel or sense that whatever had to come to the surface, or whatever message had to come, or whatever or whoever had to be eclipsed from our lives, or somehow has made its presence felt. And at least the energetic intensity of the week before and after February the 25th is starting to die down. The pot boil is starting to come down a certain amount. I would not ignore, and as I asked you to in the video about what or who has been eclipsed from your life, I would certainly look at and make sure that you have a list of things, or you're very clear about what the eclipse may have brought for you, or where it is that the eclipse is occurring in your life. So if it did not introduce something hellish, you can just make a mental note of it and move on. But for those of us who received some sort of message, however big and small, by all means do act on it as time goes on. The other thing I've asked you to do is, of course, to take note of where it is that Mercury is retrograde in your chart, or what past issues from 2015, 2016 need to be resolved that came up again around this time last year. Get that requirements gathering complete by Monday. Have a sense of the different tasks that you need to do in order to take care of some of that past traumatic stuff, or whatever it was, so that as the universe propels you forward, you are prepared. In the middle of all this stuff, the Mercury retrograde and February 25th and the week before and week after, Venus was in the sign of Aries, and I did not do a video on Venus in Aries. Venus was in Aries from February the 7th to March the 5th, till pretty recently. And Venus in Aries, it's not a well-regarded transit, but there was so much going on astrologically that I didn't think that the Venus in Aries transit was necessarily important. It was significant enough that in the craziness, I think it did prompt us all to ask the question, what about me? Or me first in some ways. Venus is a planet of relationships, among other things being money and luxuries and arts and creative endeavors and beautification and abundance and in some ways the natural flow of things. By abundance, I mean not only material abundance in terms of wealth and luxury, but also abundance in terms of the earth, sort of Mother Earth, moving along in her cycles in a way that is sustaining and creative. The trees give us flowers and fruit, and the vegetables grow, and, all those things that we need in order to sustain us that we sometimes lose track of, because we feel that our way of attaining those things is through money, again Venusian. And of course there's the relationship side of things, because we are, after all sustained by our relationships. When Venus is in Aries, a sign ruled by Mars, and a very self-interested sign, practically by definition, insofar as it's the first sign of the zodiac, we do go through a period when Venus is transiting Aries, and this was February the 7th to March the 5th, where subconsciously we may have felt this. There was a sense of, what about me? Me first. If there are negotiations that have been going on, or you have an offer or an opportunity, or there's work that needs to be done, the preoccupation is with, what does this mean to me? How am I going to cope with this? Will this happen for me? Will I get this done? Am I getting the best deal possible? Is anyone going to cheat me from there? Me. But, I felt the reason why I didn't do that video and harp on it too much is because I felt that emphasis on us was actually probably helpful during that time of February 25th back and forth and Mercury being retrograde. Nothing wrong with thinking about us, insofar as it guarantees a certain amount of self-preservation during tumultuous times. Now, Venus's entry into Taurus, for me, as I have said, and it's been taking me 9 minutes to build to this point, is a harbinger for me of the fact that forward movement is now imminent. This forward movement is going to mean more developments and propulsion. It may mean that things that came to us in January and February will now start to manifest in some way or move on to their next stage. And we're looking at the rest of, from the middle of March to the beginning of May. And the reason why I'm saying beginning of May is Venus goes retrograde in the middle of May, as does Saturn. But I'm not really looking at the Saturn-Pluto retrogrades as, maybe I should look at the Saturn irrespective. Between the middle of March to the beginning of May, we have another boost of the next set of developments, the next set of forward movement, the next set of where are we headed. And this particular cycle that we're going to be dealing with is going to have its fair share of continuing to take care of past things as well to clear the ground. So if January and February came in and the year started with a set of announcements and opportunities and forward movement for some of us or a lot of us, and those opportunities have continued, February brought a certain amount of reflection on what needs to be done to get us to a point where we can move forward comfortably in the directions that have been set up. And the middle of March, the beginning of May will bring its share of, okay, let's keep going and let's keep growing what came to us in January and early February, but also let's start to really take action and take care of some of the past things as well. Okay, got it. And Venus in Taurus is the first of these kind of curtain-raising moments. To some extent because Venus, the planet of relationships, love, some would argue, not desire, even though desire gets posed onto her. Well, maybe it should be, maybe it should be. Desire is attributed to Mars and testosterone and the male planet, but anyway, that's for another video altogether. Venus, the planet of love, beauty, the arts, creativity, money, luxuries, relationships, harmony in relationships, cooperation, cooperating with the earth, creating a sense of peace and balance and abundance, comes into this preserving green sign of Taurus. And for me, what it indicates is that between March the 5th and April the 3rd, while Venus is in Taurus, we may get opportunities. Venus, I find, brings opportunities from outside. Money-making opportunities, relationship opportunities. Now, if you have had a set of to-do lists or tasks related to where Taurus is in your chart, and traditionally Taurus would really imply more than anything else making money or using your gifts or building your self-confidence or your self-esteem to manifest abundance, whatever that means to you. There's that side of things to look at, but there's also the house where Taurus sits in your chart and what that house stands for. If you've had things that you felt you needed to do that can create opportunities, then Venus and Taurus may allow you to do that. It's nice that Venus is in Taurus while Mars is in Capricorn. These two planets support each other. And so the idea of taking action that is achievement-oriented, financially oriented towards us achieving something in the world, the gates are kind of opening around that. Now, everything will gather momentum, and you may choose to wait till maybe March the 12th or the 13th once Mercury starts to move forward a little bit to really put some of these actions in place. But they're here. The gates are opening. So Venus in Taurus may bring opportunities, financial, relationship-wise, from the outside often, but also internally. And some of these opportunities may have already started to come, especially if you know where Taurus sits in your chart and what that stands for, what that house stands for. And some of it, as I said, may be cooperating with really kind of achievement-oriented, calling-oriented, creative, whether it's business creativity and business finance, or whether it's creative in terms of what you love to do, or the arts, or your hobbies to some extent. Some of these opportunities have already started to come, but they will grow. And it also opens up a window for you to take action till the end of March, till April the 3rd. And these opportunities may be small, but they may be starting points for greater stability in some way. So even if it's a small set of opportunities, they'll be noticeable. If you're attuned to astrological cycles and Venus transits, then you will have a sense of where it is that Venus is creating peace, in a sense, or balance, or harmony, or sweetening the energy, making it sweeter, making it calmer, making it more relaxed. Even Venus in Aries, as first as that energy can be, wherever Aries sits in your chart, between February and 7th and March the 5th, you may have found that the energies all of a sudden were quite supportive, depending on what house Aries sits in. If it's in the 4th house, you may have found your mother very supportive. If it's in the 5th house, you may have found your children supportive. 7th house, you may have found your spouse or partner supportive all of a sudden, or a client supportive. Irrespective, you get the gist. So Venus and Taurus, in cooperation and harmony, frankly, with the Virgo full moon, and with all these planets in Capricorn, Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, these are all earth signs, does provide a sense of opportunity that will gather momentum once Mercury goes direct. And once to some extent this full moon is behind us, and it may bring opportunities, particularly of a financial nature, of a relationship nature, achievement-oriented, career-oriented, calling-oriented, not necessarily job, as much as what it is that you really feel you're here to do and love to do. Maybe even job. I mean, it does affect that part. You do get your income from your job, so there is a certain sense of harmony that is being brought. There are opportunities. The gates are opening. Now, tomorrow, the day before the full moon, are two transits that are important in terms of setting us up for the full moon. One I mentioned in my last video, the Sun conjuncting Neptune, and the other one is Venus conjuncts Uranus tomorrow. Oh, hi, squirrel. I've never had a squirrel crap on me before, so I hope, unlike a bird, this is just a happy thing and I'm just going to be showered with avocado flowers and buds, which I'll take. That was kind of nice. That was really fun, actually. It's still there. Cute. So very, very Venus and Taurus, actually. I'll take that. I'll take that. That's kind of nice. So the one more thing about Venus and very Venus and Uranus, kind of a sudden thing that happens, Venusian. Uranus is a planet of sudden epiphanies and growth, mental clarity, intuition, but not intuition that brings clarity. And when Venus, it could be that in the time leading up to tomorrow, the past week and a half, we may have gotten certain clarity or epiphanies about what we value in relationships, financially. Now, people who interpret Venus and Uranus conjunction more literally may say you might have gotten a windfall. That's possible. There may have been a loss. Uranus can do that sometimes. A sudden fluctuation in money or relationships or creativity or opportunities coming in. It could actually be, as I said with Venus, don't judge the opportunities that come in. They may be seemingly small, but they may be opening up the gates for greater stability and greater consistency and greater abundance and greater, I used the word stability already, I'll say it again. So just pay attention to that. So something suddenly shows up that may seem small, you just don't know where that's going to go. So anyhow, with all of that said, the Venus conjunct Uranus, which is a short-term transit, may have brought something, and Venus is a planet of what we value. I don't know why it's coming up for me to say that. Opportunities around what we value may be coming up and may already have come up. But also, I really think that Venus conjunct Uranus tomorrow and over the past week and a half may have been giving us greater clarity. And the epiphanies may be quiet and may not be dramatic because we're talking about Venus as opposed to Mars, around what it is that we value, around our relationships, around our finances, around creativity. And I would just make note of that. If for someone, it brought someone suddenly into your life, or you got a windfall, celebrate that, enjoy it. If it brought a loss, I'm sorry, but the Venus and Taurus transit is still a positive one. You know, if you have a Gemini ascendant and Venus is in your 12th house, then you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that with difficulty. So again, this is a general reading. I'm doing my best to describe the energies generally. So just take that with a grain of salt, because depending on where these transits are occurring, they may be more positive or not quite as positive. But irrespective, these are the energies at play. I can tell that Mercury is going stationary because it's just that much, it's just taking me that much longer to be expressive in this video. So I think I've said what I needed to say, even though it's been somewhat long-winded. I'm going to tie it up. Venus and Taurus, moving us away from a me-first attitude that may have been needed, and moving us forward and bringing us opportunities till the beginning of April that we may find are useful and helpful and contribute to a sense of stability and abundance as we move forward. Very much cooperating with the Virgo new moon, which occurs on the 9th, but has a kind of the Virgo new moon, Virgo full moon still has kind of a stillborn quality, but I'll talk about that more tomorrow. But Mars in Capricorn, and the planets in Capricorn don't really have that stillborn quality. So a focus on achievement, a focus on forward movement, coming up after Mercury goes direct and starts to gather some momentum by the middle of next week, even, you know, by March the 12th, 13th, 14th, especially the 16th, the gates will open and we will be forced to move forward and start to take actions that are around building the future and not just investigating and trying to heal the past, although both those sets of activities will happen side by side. A welcome transit. And even though it technically isn't spring yet, I think in the northern hemisphere, at least, I can say that we're really feeling a lot of spring-like weather. I don't know what it's like in the southern hemisphere. You're welcome to leave a comment and inform us. That'd be nice, actually. You know, I'm looking at this calamansi tree and the flowers and fruit. It's the beginning of March and it's spring, you know. It's cold today, but it's spring. Very, very Venus and Taurus. Anyhow, there's a bee like a foot away from me, which is also Venus and Taurus. Well, it would be a little bit more Venus and Aries if it acted up, but we'll just leave things on the Taurus end of things. And I really am kind of feeling this Mercury stagnation energy in the way that I'm talking and where this video is going. So I'm going to end it by saying thanks for your patronage. If you liked this video, found it useful, found the announcement or the declaration or the information regarding the fact that the portals are opening again for forward movement, along with a partnership of continuing to heal and close out past hurts, particularly where the sign of Pisces is concerned, feel free to share the video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you're notified whenever I do new videos. And my contact information, email address is in the description area below. And you can contact me if you're interested in inquiring about rates for readings, or if you want me to make an easy to read version of your chart, which will require you to know your birth time. I will be doing a video on the full moon in Virgo tomorrow that, given the sign of the times, may be long-winded, but still useful and important. So I'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks.